So, so you talk a lot in here about this concept of capacity. Why is it so important that we manage, control, get on top of, create capacity for ourselves?
Well, I think this is what creates this notion of the short fuse. You know, when people say I'm on a short fuse, or I haven't got bandwidth, or I'm stretched really thin, and that really what they're saying is I just don't have capacity to manage everything that's being thrown at me right now. And so I think there's multiple different types of capacity. And so we've all got the ability to surge when something happens, when, if we've suddenly got to act in some way. I don't kind of want to make it too bleak, but let's say there's a family emergency. No matter what we are doing, we can respond to that, and we have capacity always to respond to that. Where it becomes a bit tricky is when we're always operating out of that sense of urgency. That's what I call surge capacity. We're constantly surging to respond to what life's throwing at us. And so I'm a huge fan of this notion of adaptive capacity, which is the space, Stephen Covey would call it the pause between stimulus and response, the space to go, something's happening. What is the best and most optimal way for me to respond to that? So I'm not surging, I'm kind of pausing and thinking, gee, how can I respond well to that? And so we saw, the word that got used a lot during the last couple of years while we were dealing with a pandemic was, pivot. And I would argue that those that were able to pivot successfully are those that had adaptive capacity. So we saw it in organizations, but we also saw it in individuals. I watched individuals have varying levels of coping around the changes that were brought about over the last couple of years. And those that had the adaptive capacity, so a bit more space, weren't quite as stretched, were able to really think about how they wanted to respond to the changes and in many respects, take advantage of some of the changes that were presented.